66 million years ago, Earth moved through its orbit with the quiet regularity it had maintained for billions of years. Oceans breathed against the edges of continents. Forests steamed beneath humid skies, and vast open plains trembled under the steps of creatures whose reign had lasted longer than any future lineage could hope to imagine. The late Cretaceous world was thriving. Ceratopsians thundered across floodplains in search of water. Titanosaurs browsed among groves of towering conifers, and raptors stalked the undergrowth with alert yellow eyes that missed nothing. Pterosaurs soared along thermal currents far above this living mosaic, while smaller mammals, still furtive and cautious, threaded between the roots of cycads and magnolia trees. Nothing in this vibrant, ancient world hinted that its final sunrise had already begun. Far beyond the blue sky, past the highest thin strips of cirrus and beyond the fragile boundary of atmosphere, something moved with silent inevitability. A mountain of rock, more than 10 kilometers wide, drifted on a trajectory set in motion millions of years earlier. It had wandered through the darkness of space with no intention, no malice, no awareness. Yet its path and Earth's orbit had finally intersected. Gravity reached out unseen, catching the incoming object and pulling it closer. As it fell, frictionless and swift, its speed increased until it approached the atmosphere at more than 20 kilometers per second. Down below, nothing new. Along the shallow coastlines of what is now the Gulf of Mexico, mosasaurs sliced through warm seas in search of prey, their sleek bodies casting shadows over ammonites drifting in the water column. Hadrosaurs grazed on ferns near the water's edge, lifting their heads only when a breeze rolled across the surface. In the forests inland, a mother ankylosaur nudged her nearly grown offspring towards safer ground, while a tyrannosaur, apex predator of its time, followed the scent of a recent kill. Above the canopy, sunlight glinted off the wings of dragonflies, tracing ancient patterns of flight. Life had no reason to fear the future. But the future was already burning. The asteroid hit the upper atmosphere in a brilliant streak, brighter than all the stars combined. Its entry compressed the air in front of it into an incandescent sheath of fire, creating a roar that would have been heard across continents if sound could travel so high. The shock wave raced ahead of the enormous bolide, rippling through the atmosphere faster than any thunder ever produced by storm or volcano. Birds and pterosaurs scattered instinctively, though nothing with wings could outrun what approached. Every creature that looked skyward witnessed a second sun tearing open the heavens. Then it struck. The impact occurred in shallow coastal water near the Yucatan Peninsula. For a moment that lasted no more than a heartbeat, the earth beneath the oceans rose as if recoiling. The asteroid slammed into the planet with the power of several billion nuclear bombs, vaporizing itself, the seabed, and all life unfortunate enough to exist within many kilometers of the site. Rock instantly converted to superheated plasma. The seafloor exploded upward, blasting molten debris into the atmosphere and carving a crater nearly 200 kilometers wide. A column of vaporized minerals, water, and dust shot into the sky, rising hundreds of kilometers, punching through the troposphere and stratosphere to deposit the signature of this catastrophe across the globe. The shock wave that rippled outward from the crater flattened everything for thousands of kilometers. Forests collapsed as though made of grass. Creatures were thrown to the ground, some killed instantly, others stunned and bewildered. A tyrannosaur near the coast felt the explosion as a wave of heat and pressure, a force that tore leaves from branches and shattered bones in smaller animals. Unable to comprehend the disaster, it roared against the rising dust-filled wind that turned daylight into a red, choking haze. Within minutes, the ocean itself heaved. A mega tsunami rose from the impact basin, walls of water racing outward in all directions. In what would one day become inland North America, inland seas sloshed violently, destroying shorelines, dragging plants, animals, and sediments into chaotic swirling masses. Entire ecosystems vanished beneath water and mud. But the immediate destruction was only the beginning. As the skies grew darker with the debris of the shattered crust, a rain of molten glass, tiny droplets of liquefied rock called tektites began falling back to Earth. They streaked through the atmosphere, heating the air globally. Across continents, forests ignited simultaneously, turning vast landscapes into fields of flame. Even regions thousands of kilometers from the impact burned as the superheated re-entry of ejecta raised global temperatures for hours. Animals fled instinctively, but escape was impossible. Firestorms swept through plains and forests alike, consuming ferns, cycads, and conifers with equal indifference. Smoke curled into an already darkened sky, further reducing what little light remained. Then came the long darkness. The fine dust and sulfur-rich aerosols hurled into the atmosphere by the impact wrapped Earth in an opaque veil. Sunlight struggled to reach the ground. Photosynthesis failed across oceans and continents. The great chalk-producing plankton of the seas died, robbing marine food chains of their foundation. On land, the lush vegetation of the Cretaceous withered and vanished. Without plants, herbivores weakened. Without herbivores, predators starved. The echo echoed from the smallest beetles to the mightiest dinosaurs. The surviving creatures faced a world both frigid and poisoned. Temperatures plummeted. Acid rain fell across the globe as airborne sulfur mixed with moisture. Water sources became deadly. Creatures that had depended on stable climates, massive reptiles with bodies poorly suited to energy scarcity, began to disappear. Titanosaurs grew sluggish as food vanished. Triceratops herds thinned. Even tyrannosaurs, unmatched hunters for millions of years, found themselves wandering barren landscapes where the forests that once sheltered prey were now charred skeletons of trees. Weeks turned into months, and months into years. The world remained dim, cold, and unforgiving. Species that had survived the initial catastrophe succumbed to hunger, disease, and environmental collapse. The age of dinosaurs, once so robust and enduring, flickered like a failing flame. Yet amid the ruin, some life endured. Small mammals, burrowers, and omnivores emerged cautiously from underground shelters. They fed on seeds, roots, insects, resources that persisted even in a light-starved world. Birds, descendants of small feathered theropods, found refuge in their ability to exploit diverse environments. Crocodiles and turtles survived in rivers and lakes, insulated from the worst extremes. Nature had not died. It had simply changed its shape, waiting for the skies to clear. Eventually, after years of darkness, the dust began to settle. Sunlight returned in hesitant beams that grew stronger with each passing season. Rain washed ash from the land. Plants slowly reclaimed the environment, spreading across the scarred continents. Ecosystems began to reassemble, but in forms unlike anything the Cretaceous world had known. The giants were gone. Their era had ended in a single day, marked first by light brighter than creation, and then by darkness deeper than extinction. What followed was a world transformed, a planet reset, ready for a new lineage to rise. And from the survivors, small, overlooked, and insignificant compared to the titans that once ruled, evolved the creatures that would someday walk on two legs, study ancient rocks, and trace their distant origins to the day the sky fell and ended the age of dinosaurs.